forth of objects or of saucers or whatever it might be. We might also have other kinds of reports with aircraft being taken down by these things, or who knows what is out there, but we at this point don't have access to it, right?
Exactly. Whatever reason it's still being kept secret, I don't know. And unfortunately, the archives is like digging in a haystack. I mean, there's so much material there. I could literally spend every waking moment of my life and not be able to get through the amount of documentation that's available. And this is good in one way because that means we have the potential to discover new documentation that will help support or provide evidence of A, B, and C and give us a clearer picture. It's just amazing how much is yet to be discovered in the regular archives. And it's amazing to me how much is still classified, which should not be classified, but from what I gather, it is really a lot of times a manpower issue. But I think that if we are to really find the great information, and it is indeed something that is of great importance or that would shed a light that we were dealing with something unconventional in nature, that documentation, I feel sure, is well guarded and well kept in the United States, let's say the Pentagon Library or someplace like that. I don't think we would find smoking gun evidence in the National Archives. What we'll find are crumbs.
Exactly.
That definitely indicates there was something, such as that Turin sighting I spoke to you about in 1942. They talked about the crew, refusing to be shaken.
Basically, what you're saying here is that these are the crumbs, so to speak, of what they have been cleaning up, but what is left behind from that process, basically.
That's what I think. Yes, I think that it's, that there was a real effort to hide the documentation, to keep it out of the public domain until they were finished with it or are finished with it. And if it was German technology, then why keep it so secret? Was it that advanced? But again, all the theories now are pick a theory and then go after that. It really leaves it open because of the great deal of missing information.
Yeah. I mean, again, one can't avoid thinking that, okay, so let's say that the military going into all of this, that the U.S. military didn't know about these things before World War II or before, let's say, 1933 or something like that. And all of a sudden, these things begin to pop up, meaning that a whole new field, so to speak, is opening up for the military, and whole new branches within the government or military structure is being set up in order to handle this kind of information, to examine it, to look at it, to try to assess if this is a danger or not, what it is, and so forth. And potentially we might be looking at a situation where they still have no clue, but they're still trying, they have continued sightings, continued reportings, continued investigations into this phenomena, but still to this day their main objective is to keep this away from the public in order to, before they can be sure, so to speak, of what this is they're facing. What do you think about that idea?
I have to agree. I think the reason it is secret is because the governments, they probably know more. They have pictures, they have films, they have, real good testimony, but they don't have answers. And I think they're just as mystified as anyone else. But I don't think they can come out and publicly say our airspace is being infiltrated by aircraft from unknown origin, and we really don't have any control over it.
Right.
So I believe that the secrecy is because of lack of knowledge. If we are looking at it through the eyes of someone who says that we have an extraterrestrial factor here we're dealing with, well, I do not think that there is any type of a real liaison between an extraterrestrial life form and high government officials and military. I think what it comes down to is that the military realizes exceedingly more so than we do because of the technology and the ability for them to be in the air at the altitudes, to have the technological equipment to track or observe.
Mm-hmm.
And they really don't know. They just realize that they have no control over it. So the best policy is to just keep it close to the chest and not reveal anything.
Yeah, and potentially they want it too, I guess. They want the technology, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's secret if it's secret operations being conducted by organizations around the world, okay, I can see one or two times, but so much is being observed around the world in such a high number, I can't imagine anyone taking the risk of aircraft like that going down.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be one time, or it's just too puzzling to think that we are actually orchestrating a program that has aircraft that are the UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very puzzling to me.
Mm-hmm. My idea of all this, in a way, I guess, is that it might be a mix between all the different things that are ongoing right now. I mean, some might be actually ET technology. Some actually might be our own technology that we are trying out, either because we have developed up to that point right now, or that we have retrieved some flying disc or something like that and actually back engineer it, and now we're experimenting with it ourselves. And some might be playing out hallucinations by some people, and some might be astrological phenomena. But I think that in somewhere in between all of this, there is a little bit of truth in each so to speak, each category. What do you think about that?
Yes, I do believe that. I feel that we are definitely dealing with a situation where there are conventional answers, but among that, just like in World War II, among the rockets and the flares and the jets and the rockets, there was something highly unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be very easy to just let that fall into the mix and keep confusion over the whole subject matter.
Yeah. And also, one thing that kind of needs to be clarified for I mean, if we talk about the kind of consensus idea when one mentions UFO to another person, they always get the idea that, oh, you're speaking about an alien or something from another planet. But that is not the case. If we break down the word itself, this simply means, unidentified flying object. That is it. That is all. And that in itself it's not a, it's a mystery. It's unidentified, of course, but it doesn't imply that this is something extraordinary or fantastic, right?
I agree. It's just one possibility. One possibility that I don't know how many times whenever I mention I wrote this book, or they find out it's about UFOs, there's always a grin involved, or like a look like, oh, immediately they're thinking I'm talking about extraterrestrials.
Sure, yeah.
Well, the only time I mention UFO in the bulk of the book is on the cover, because the term didn't exist. For one.
Yeah.
So, but, even during the war, they were thinking outside the box. Science fiction was a big deal at that time. And a lot of the pilots in our armed forces grew up reading science fiction. And so you will see in the intelligence memorandum, like I mentioned before, terms like Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and so they weren't discounting, as far as what was discussed among the men in the chow lines. I can speak just from what I know about the 415th. Major Augsburger said the men always talked about the possibility that something might be from the stars. They laughed about it. They weren't scared, because they really just were scared over the fact they couldn't outmaneuver these aircraft. They couldn't shoot them down. They approached them without the radar picking them up. So that was truly a fear that a combat pilot didn't want to have to encounter. But after the day was done, they were back on the ground. There was plenty of times that they talked science fiction.
Well, I mean, again, that's obvious when you think about it. You catch something, so to speak, within the framework of something that within the mind of your the framework of your mind you're trying to encapsulate it with an idea that you already have. So when potentially again you're looking at something that you can't describe or can't explain or don't have the word to describe, things are going to be more fantastic or more confusing in a way for you. I would believe that is the case. And today, when we are so accustomed to, through all the TV, media, movies and whatnot, with the idea of, flying energy balls or flying saucers or whatever it might be, we have something within the framework of our mind of what we think we're looking at. So that kind of helps along, I think, to also explain, but also to understand. Don't you agree?
I agree. And at that time, War of the Worlds was heavily on the minds of the young men in the services.
Mm.
It was those images. They had images, they had thoughts, they had ideas about what the future would be like. And when they were encountering things that appeared to be coming out of the future, because it just didn't match what they should be seeing or observing, because they didn't have any kind of basis of understanding. How could something travel at thousands of miles per hour? And how could it be silent? And how could it maneuver around an aircraft and disappear? That was extraordinary to them, and that was a real magic, a real issue.
Yeah.
But still, again, they were definitely thinking conventional. They were definitely thinking, my God, what does Germany have?
And at the same time, what is so fascinating with the field of ufology to me is also that a lot of these things that are seen and spotted and witnessed actually help to change the imagination of those who are looking at it and those who are consequently later on listening to those persons telling it back, meaning that with an idea that something can travel at that speed or look the way it does or whatever, human beings we ourselves are spawned to look into new areas of propulsion. We get ideas from this, and this is something very exciting for me also, because this means that if we can imagine it, we basically can build it eventually. I don't know if that is the case, but I want to think that anyway. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, because I think there's a statement that said, today's science fiction is tomorrow's science fact.
Right, yeah.
And it's absolutely true. I mean, you're right on target with that. There is something I forgot to mention that we were talking about. Well, we have the visual observations. We have some radar returns. We had one crew member feeling heat associated with the sighting. But to look at Mr. Stringfield's sighting, it's the classic case where it was daytime. It ruled out the fact that he could definitely see around and determine if it was something that wasn't masked by the night sky. And his aircraft was physically affected by the sighting, he believes. There were 3 objects that came out of a cloud bank, and that's what he saw. They looked like burning magnesium, teardrop in shape. And about that particular time, his aircraft started having a malfunction with one of the engines.
Really?
So much so he heard commotion up in the cockpit, and then the assistant pilot came back and said, prepare for a crash landing. And they were out over the middle of the ocean, in between the islands of Ieshima and Iwo Jima. Scared him. And approximately the time that they recovered, which was only seconds, the aircraft recovered, the 3 objects that he was observing went back into the cloud bank and disappeared, and of course his aircraft were fine. They made an emergency landing on Iwo Jima, and Mr. Stringfield got out and checked, and all along the C-46 transport aircraft he was in, oil had come from one of the engines sprayed all the way down along the side. He tried to connect with the pilots, but they were whisked away for debriefing, and he had other duties he was assigned to in that situation, and he could never get to them. So he